You're fucking disgusting. That's what you are. Call me, or I'm going to come find you. Fucking whore. These are some of the last words Amanda Colley heard from her estranged husband on the morning she was murdered. Words sent in voicemails, threats sent over text message, and words yelled at her as she was shot and murdered on her bathroom floor. Murdered after she heard the defendant go into her bathroom closet and shoot at one of her friends. It turned out to be her best friend, Lindy Dobbins. Lindy had been hiding in the closet, crouched down behind a chest of drawers. She was on the phone with 911, and she died with the phone still up to her. You will hear several 911 calls in this case, 2 of which capture the homicides on open lines. Both Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins called 911 just seconds before they were murdered. Those calls connected seconds apart, and they allow you to hear and witness just at least a part of what happened in the house that day that brought us here today. Amanda's call connects first, and it begins with her pleading with the defendant. You will hear her say, "He's not in there. He's not in there. Please stop." She's referring to a man named Lamar Dubberly, who the defendant was there to hunt down and kill. Lindy's call connects just 14 seconds later after Amanda's, and it begins with her screaming, "Oh my God, oh my God, I've just been shot. I've just been shot." You will learn that that was a shot that came through the closet door, grazed the arm of another friend and witness you will hear from, Rachel, and entered Lindy's foot at the back of the closet. She kept screaming, Lindy, until the defendant walked into the closet, gun in his hand, pointed it at her head, and killed her. Shot her in the head and shot her in the shoulder, just inches below the head. These murders occurred August 27, 2015, in the neighborhood of Mirabella, which is in the rural Gulf Village area here in St. Johns County. It was just after 10:30 a.m. when the defendant, estranged from his wife and not allowed to have contact with her and not allowed to be within 500 feet of the home on Bellagio due to an injunction, committed these murders. Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins were not the only 2 individuals in the house that morning. Amanda's other friend, who I mentioned, Rachel Hendricks, was there, and a man Amanda was seeing, Lamar Dubberly, was also present. Rachel and Lamar lived. They escaped the defendant's attempts to kill them, and they will be here to testify and tell you exactly what they saw and what they heard that morning. In order to understand what was going on in the home at 260 South Bellagio that morning, I need to explain a little bit about the history and what was going on in the Colley family at that time. The evidence will show that Amanda and James Colley had been married approximately 8 years. They had 2 children. There had been marital problems for a while, and the 2 had separated the summer of 2015. Amanda sought and obtained a domestic violence injunction for her protection in August, earlier in August of 2015. During this time, the defendant moved out. He moved in with his sister, She lived, her name is Rhonda Colley Boatwright, and she lived off County Road 210 in a neighborhood called Southampton. You will hear throughout this trial that house, that area referred to as the house on Garrison. He was served that final injunction on August 10th, 2015. Deputy Pittman, who works in the Civil Process Division of the Sheriff's Office, will explain to you that process, that he was served. He had knowledge of that injunction. An injunction that didn't allow him to have contact with Amanda and did not allow him to go within 500 feet of their marital home. Both Amanda and James had entered new relationships with significant others. Amanda was dating a man she met at work, Lamar Dudley. The defendant was dating a woman he met at work, Amy Mason. The defendant was suspicious that Amanda had found somebody new, but she wasn't confirming his suspicions. He wasn't supposed to be talking to her. They were getting a divorce. They were separated. They were done. It was none of his business. But he couldn't let it go. Even with the new girlfriend of Amy in the background, the defendant was very concerned about her new relationship. The defendant had a good neighbor and friend named Mike Dickens. He lived just a few houses down, and Mike Dickens was sort of keeping an eye out for James, checking on Amanda. And the weekend before the homicides, you'll find out August 27th was a Thursday. The weekend before the homicides, Lamar Dudley was over at Amanda's house, and he was cutting the grass. The defendant's friend, Mike Dickens, saw that, took a photograph of him mowing the grass. He was shirtless in the front yard. Mike Dickens sent that photo to the defendant's sister, Rhonda, and she in turn sent it to the defendant. And within seconds of receiving that photo, the evidence will show you that the defendant began to harass Amanda. That was confirmation. Who is this? I knew it. You know, a lot of conversation about who this man was. And Amanda denied it. You don't know what you're talking about, none of your business. Again, you're not supposed to be talking to me. From her perspective, they were done. On August 26th, the night before the homicide, would have been a Wednesday, the defendant spent a large portion of that evening talking to his girlfriend, Amy Mason, talking to her on the phone, texting with her, up until just about bedtime, 11 or so at night. Amy Mason went to bed, and she assumed that the defendant was going to bed. And she knew the defendant had a court proceeding the morning of the 27th. Based on cell tower location data, we know that he left his sister's house in Southampton that night after getting done talking to Amy Mason. Approximately, it's almost midnight, 11:54. His cell phone starts to move. It later registers off of a cell phone tower in Clay County about 1 a.m. And then evidence from those records and his phone later put him at the marital home on South Bellagio at approximately 3:45 a.m. He traveled to the home in the middle of the night. He entered it, and when he did, he found out Amanda wasn't there. Amanda was gone. Amanda was with Lamar. He had the kids for the night. His kids were at his sister's house in Rhonda, so he wasn't there to visit his kids. He was there between 3 and 4 in the morning to find Amanda. And when he found she wasn't there, he began going through the house. He went through her belongings, he went through her mail, and it was there where he found something he didn't like. The defendant found some adult toys, sex toys, that Amanda had ordered and had come in the mail, and they were in the house. This infuriated the defendant, and he began to trash the house. He pulled clothes all over the house. He emptied garbage cans all over the house. He began to bust all of the televisions in the house, to include ripping the screen off of the television in the master bedroom. If you've ever wondered what the inside of the television looks like, you're going to be able to see. He completely ransacked the house he was not allowed to be in. When he was done with that, he called his good friend Mike Dickens, the one who lived just a few houses away and had sent the photo of Lamar. He woke him up, drove to his house about 4:45 a.m. Mr. Dickens will tell you that's about the time, and it's confirmed by video surveillance that was located on that street. Mike Dickens will tell you the defendant was pissed. He was mad about what he found. This was further confirmation of what he believed to be true, what he couldn't let go. He had the toys in his truck with him. He was asking Mike Dickens to look at them, very, very, very mad about these items. Mr. Dickens will tell you that the defendant spent about 5 or so minutes at his house, 5 to 10 minutes, mad about these toys, told him what he did in the house, and Mike Dickens gave him a beer, said, "You need to go home." The defendant travels back to his sister's house in Southampton on 210. And that is when he begins. It's about 5 a.m., just before 5, when he leaves Mike Dickens. And that is when the calls and the texts begin back to Amanda Colley. He tries to get a hold of her initially by texting her and saying, "Avery, their daughter, is sick. Call me." When she didn't respond, either she didn't hear it or she ignored it. When that didn't work, he began to call and call and call. And Lamar will tell you he was there, he was with her, that she answered those calls, a couple of them. Phone records tell us that she answered 2 of those calls, approximately 5 a.m. Lamar will be able to tell you from his perspective what he heard, the anger, and the statements made by the defendant to Amanda at that hour of the night. After Amanda answered those calls, found out what he did, she stopped responding. From about 4:50 a.m. until the time of the homicides the next morning at 10:30, the defendant calls 22 times and texts repeatedly. Never stops, really, between 5 a.m. and 10:30. You'll find out that the evidence shows Amanda spoke to him just twice more. After the call at 5 a.m. where she found out what happened, she doesn't answer him, ignores every text, does not answer his calls. 9 a.m. is she answers a call and they speak for about 6 minutes. And that's during the time the defendant was traveling here to this courthouse complex that you're sitting at. And then again, her last call with him was after he left this area, after he left court and headed back north. 9:41, there was a 14-minute call. We may never know what happened on that call. But what we know, the evidence shows, is that after that call, which was placed on his drive, headed north on 95, back towards Jacksonville, back towards where he lived, back towards where he worked, he decided not to go to work. Instead, he returned to his bedroom at his sister's house, the house on Southampton, and he retrieved multiple firearms. He left that neighborhood, and there's a Speedway gas station just out front of Southampton. At about 10:14, you'll find out that he stopped at the gas station. After being at the house, he bought a pack of cigarettes, got a little bit of gas, and he bought a 24-ounce beer. He traveled then, not to work, but to the house on South Bellagio, the marital home. This time, he didn't drive down Bellagio. He went into an adjacent neighborhood. It's a big complex with several sub-neighborhoods inside of it. He drove into a neighboring adjacent one, parked in an abandoned house's driveway, and armed with 2 firearms, he made his approach from that neighborhood through houses, through a wood line, and approached the rear of 260 South Bellagio from behind. His last communication out about 10:30, just minutes before the homicide, was to his girlfriend, Amy Mason, telling her he loved her. Before we talk about what happened next in him entering the home, it's important to know what was simultaneously going on at South Bellagio. So after those calls at 5 a.m., Lamar and Amanda don't go back to sleep. They're obviously worried. They decide to both call into work because she needs to deal with what he just did to the house the night before. They decide that she should wait until they know he's going to be in court. She knew he had a court date. So she waits until that 9:30 hour to head home. Surveillance footage will show you that she returned home about 9:15 in the morning by herself. Lamar will tell you that once she got home, she placed a call to him, and it's a FaceTime call. You're not Apple people. Essentially, it's a call with video. So she called him, and she showed him, what she was discovering in the home, the damage, the ransacking. He was obviously extremely concerned, and he knew from the extent of the damage that he was seeing that he had to do something, even if Amanda didn't want to call law enforcement. Lamar reached out to Amanda's best friend, Lindy Dobbins, and Amanda had already also done that morning. So Lindy knew what was going on, and as Lamar's driving to the house, he's calling Lindy. He's like, we need to call law enforcement, telling her what he saw. This isn't right. So they talk. Lindy decides to leave work. She worked just up the road from Arabella at the Crocs store, The Elm. So she's gonna come help Amanda, console Amanda. Amanda's extremely upset about the state of her house. So she works it out at work, and she leaves work. Meanwhile, Lamar's calling the non-emergency number of the sheriff's office to report what the defendant had done in the middle of the night. Lamar arrives at the house, and then shortly thereafter, a public service assistant arrives. So the sheriff's office dispatches to those types of calls, at least to take the initial information. PSA Young will tell you that he met with Amanda. She was upset. She walked him around the house a bit, showed him what had occurred. She told him she was going through the divorce, and she knew her husband had done this, but she didn't want to file charges. She wanted to talk to her family. She wanted to talk to her divorce attorney. The surveillance video will show you that the PSA left the house that morning at approximately 10:09. When he left, he didn't know about the injunction. He did not know he was in court. Amanda didn't want to do anything, so he left information. If you change your mind, call a detective, a deputy, sworn deputy will come out and assist you. So he leaves approximately 10:09. Video surveillance shows Lindy arriving at the home about 10:11 that morning, just minutes after the PSA leaves. And Rachel Hendricks' car is seen coming in at 10:27. Lindy, during this time, has now reached out to Rachel, their other really good friend. 3 of them are good friends. And lets her know what's going on. So Rachel heads that way as well to help. The first 911 call in this case came in from Amanda at 10:36. Rachel was in that house for less than 10 minutes when gunshots rang out, hitting the rear sliding glass doors of the house. The evidence will show that as Amanda and Lindy were in the master bedroom, bathroom area assessing a large amount of the damage that was done in there, Rachel and Lamar were in the living room, kitchen area. It's open floor plan, you'll see. And a loud bang and shattering of glass is heard. Catches their attention, another gunshot is heard. Lamar immediately recognizes them as gunshots. He's got military background. And he looks up and he can see a bullet hole through one of the sliding glass doors. When he does that, he hears a male voice from the backyard scream, "Where is he?" So he takes off. He ran out through the kitchen and through the garage, and he takes off running. Rachel will tell you that Same thing. She heard these things. She looks out. She's able to see the man, the defendant, that she's met, spoken to on several occasions, used to babysit their children, standing in the backyard beyond the fence on a walking path with a gun in his hand, pointing it at these sliding glass doors. She turned simultaneously and ran towards the master bedroom bathroom area where Lindy and Amanda were located. As the three women run into the master bathroom, imagine you walk through a bathroom door, there's a double vanity in front of you. There, Rachel will tell you there is a closet immediately to the right, a walk-in closet. It's a long, narrow, I refer to a bowling alley closet, long and narrow. And to the left in the bathroom is the shower, tub, and toilet area, not a separate room, just all open. So the three women run in that area. Rachel closed Lindy and Rachel into the closet. Amanda's still out in the main part of the bathroom. Rachel will tell you that as she entered the closet, Lindy went and hid and crouched down by a chest of drawers that's running along the right side wall. Rachel is wedging her left foot at the closet door. You know closet doors don't lock. So she's wedging her left foot and she's got her arm on the door knob, keeping it close, barricading them in to this closet. As they're doing this, she hears, very quickly, she hears Amanda in the bathroom. She can hear James, the defendant, is now in the house, screaming. You will hear the testimony of Rachel and the evidence of the two 911 calls that come from two perspectives. Amanda's comes from the bathroom main area. Lindy's obviously comes from the closet. And the three of those things will paint a very vivid picture of what happens next. Once Rachel and Lindy are in that closet, like I said, she can hear the screaming in the bathroom. The defendant is screaming over and over again, "Where is he? Where is he?" Clearly looking for Lamar. He's trying to get into the closet, and Amanda's telling him, "He's not in there, he's not in there. It's Rachel and Lindy. He's not in there," begging and pleading with him to stop. It's during this time that the defendant turns and shoots Amanda. Rachel and Lindy hear that shot. And Rachel will tell you she doesn't hear Amanda scream again after that first shot. The defendant, after shooting Amanda, turns his attention back to the closet. He shoots into that closet, and that's a shot that, when he does so, it goes right over, it actually grazes Rachel's arm, and it enters in the back of the closet Lindy's foot. When that shot went off into the closet door, Rachel will tell you, I don't know, he busted into the door. At that point, I let go. She lets go of that closet door, and the closet door comes back on her, closes on her. She's between the wall and the closet door. And it's at that point where she watches the defendant walk past her with a gun in his hand and go and point it at Lindy's head. And she takes that opportunity to slip out and run out of the closet. She runs to save her life, and she leaves that house. She started checking on doors for the neighbors, eventually found one, ironically, at Mike Dickens' house. And she takes up refuge in a closet at Mike Dickens' residence. There was another family, Mr. Dickens wasn't there, but there was another family member there who called 911 for her as she hid in the closet. What Rachel didn't know happened as she left, but what the evidence will tell you is that when the defendant approached Lindy hiding in the closet, he shot her once in the temple and then just inches below again in her shoulder area, both lethal shots that killed Lindy. When he exited the closet, he found Amanda in the bathroom over by the toilet area, not dead, hurt, but not dead. On the 911, one of the 911 calls, you can hear her beg for her life and say, "No, no, no, please don't," as he comes back towards her. That is when he calls her a fucking whore as he shoots her multiple times, emptying his 9mm and transitioning into a second handgun, 45 caliber, that he had brought into the house. The medical examiner will testify about the injuries of both Lindy Dobbins and Amanda Colley. And Dr. Bulick will tell you that he can tell that Amanda was positioned on the ground for a large portion of those shots. A lot of them are defensive wounds. She was trying to defend herself, trying to protect vital organs. There's a lot of shots in her legs, he'll describe to you, is commonly seen with trying to protect herself. There are shots through arms, again, defensive wounds. She was alive, and she was trying to protect herself during this attack on the bathroom floor. You will hear that one of the last shots, a shot that actually entered and exited in her wrist, and then it enters her neck, severs her spinal cord, would have made her a quadriplegic at that point. She would have been able to defend herself after that shot. So that's how he's able to tell you it's, if not the last, one of the last shots, and killed her. The defendant left the 9mm handgun right on the bathroom floor, empty. He fled out the back doors into he was driving his sister's car that morning. It's a Maroon Infiniti. So he fled out those back doors, across the way into that adjacent neighborhood, and got into his sister's car. He immediately called his father as he headed back to his sister's house, and he took a lot of calls at that time between various family members. He returned back to his sister's house in Southampton. The evidence will show you just briefly his cell phone evidence, cell site towers evidence you'll hear, puts him there, and he throws and abandons his cell phone in that neighborhood, on a neighborhood street, and it's later found by somebody riding their bike. The defendant was headed to Virginia, we later learned. He fled the area, obviously not wanting to be caught. He dumped his cell phone, but he brought with him the 45 caliber murder weapon and an AR-15. During the homicides, the St. Johns County Sheriff's Office Dispatch Center is receiving a lot of 911 calls. Amanda's, Lindy's, Rachel's, when she flees, and Lamar. Lamar, who left as well, ran. He ran through the neighborhood until he came upon some landscaper workers that were working in the neighborhood that allowed him to use a cell phone. His cell phone was in the house, not with him. So the sheriff's office has all these calls. They've got the immediate identifying description from Rachel that it is James Colley that has committed these murders, physical description, and identifying that that's who it was. They immediately began to dispatch resources to both Mirabella, Southampton, as it was his last known address. But by the time the deputies arrived on Garrison in Southampton, he's already gone. They make contact with his father and an uncle that is there. The house is secured and a search warrant is obtained at that time. A search warrant was obviously also obtained for 260 South Bellagio, and after all of this initial investigation in the first couple hours, law enforcement is actively looking for Mr. Colley, and an arrest warrant is obtained. Approximately 12 hours after the double murder of Amanda Colley and Lindy Dobbins, the defendant was arrested after a traffic stop in Wise County, Virginia. In this case, he is charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder for the murders of Amanda and Lindy. The evidence in this case will overwhelmingly support a conviction for both premeditated murder and felony murder because he committed the burglary, and in the course of that burglary, into a house he was court-ordered not allowed to be in. He killed those 2 women. You will be instructed also on the 2 attempted murder counts of Rachel and Lamar, and 2 counts of burglary. The burglary he committed at approximately 4 a.m., and then the burglary he committed again at 10:30. That's why there's 2 different counts. And finally, he's charged with the aggravated stalking after an injunction. And that's for the contact and harassment that began with the burglary, continued with the calls and the texts all morning, and ultimately because of the acts of violence and the death of Amanda Colley. The state is confident that we will meet our burden in this case and that you will have no doubt, that this is a case of premeditated murder and felony murder. Because the defendant was angry. He was rejected. He realized at that time he had lost control of Amanda. She was done with him. She had moved on. And when he drove to South Bellagio on that date, he was going there to kill her and Lamar. And even though Amanda told him Lamar wasn't there, she begged him not to go in that closet. She told him her friends were in there. He went in that closet and killed her best friend. Anyway. He thought Amanda was disgusting because of what he found, what he believed may have been going on, and what he knew. He told her that before he warned her to call him back or he was going to come find her that one. He was mad, and instead of leaving court and heading to work, he made that choice. He didn't go to work. Instead, he went and armed himself with multiple firearms. You'll see the evidence from his bedroom and his sister's ammunition, firearms boxes thrown about his bedroom in a rush to get those guns and head to South Bellagio. He could have headed anywhere else to blow off whatever steam he had, whatever anger he had. But he decided to go to the one place he wasn't allowed to go. He was in control at that point, sadly. He could do whatever he wanted in that house and nobody could stop him. And that's what he did. And ladies and gentlemen, that is first-degree murder. And at the end of this case, I will stand up before you again and ask you to render that verdict. Thank you.